Welcome to the Untangled Knitting Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. It is a beautiful, sunny spring day here in Oakland, California. It's also a very busy day on my street. I was waiting basically all week for the construction noise to calm down so that I could film. Unfortunately, Saturday there's still some noise, so I apologize in advance. I also got a good speaker that I was really excited to use, but unfortunately I don't have the right connection for it, so that's on order. So yeah, it might be a little messy today for my third official podcast, but I hope you'll stick with me because we have a lot of exciting things to talk about. There's a giveaway I'll talk about at the end. And yeah, I'm just really stoked that you are here. If you're new, my name is Lily. I am an enthusiast of knitting and yarn and fiber. I am not an expert, but I am here to share my excitement and my experience. So I live in Oakland, California with my 5-year-old daughter, 2-year-old son, gorgeous husband, and a lot of cheddar bunnies. If you have kids under 10, I think you know what a cheddar bunny is. And if not, it's goldfish that looks like a bunny. So that's a big part of my world right now. There's a lot of other really exciting things actually happening in my world, so I'll save most of that for a little knitting chat and update at the end. But yeah, it just seems like things are really revving up for me and for a lot of folks I know here in the spring of 2022. And I think there's a lot of energy and excitement and forward momentum. So I think that feels good for a lot of us. So should we begin? I suppose we should. We can start with what I'm wearing, which is my first full garment that I ever made, and I finished it almost exactly a year ago. This is the Festive Doodle by Caitlin Hunter, and I'll get kind of close so you can see. I'm rocking it today just with my casual Saturday jeans and a white shirt. It's really turned into kind of a sweatshirt at this point. It is the project that started it all for me, and I don't wear it in my first kind of intro about me episode, which is only about 20 minutes long, so I think I'm quite nervous in it, but if you do want to kind of see a lot of the origins of this stuff, you can go and watch that one. But it was really the project that made me realize I already was a knitter, that I could knit, and that I could do hard things. And it felt like such an accomplishment. It is actually a really, really straightforward, easy to read, easy to execute pattern. It is only, it's stranded color work, but the repeats are almost always just 2 or 3 stitches. So before you change colors, and there's only 2 colors per row. So you get into a rhythm quite quickly, and even on the longest circumference rounds, it feels really fast because you're changing colors so easily and the repeats are really easy to memorize. So for me, it was a really fun, I won't say fast knit because it did take me a while, but it was really rewarding. It was so rewarding, and I wear it constantly. It says festive, so I think, and I know a lot of folks have made it in more kind of holiday colors, and that all over color work can read a little bit seasonally, but I actually wear this a lot in the summertime. Here in the Bay Area, it can actually get quite cold. The famous quote is, I don't even know if he really said it, but the idea is that Mark Twain said the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. And it can get really cold here in the Bay Area around June and then again in August. And I really like wearing this to the beach, or wearing it out on a foggy morning. And then when it warms up, it's insulating, but it's never kind of hot. And that's because I think the yarn I used was really, really magical. This yarn is Sea Change Fibers from Santa Cruz, California, an incredible hand dyer, Sarah. She's just a magician. Has an incredible palette. I really love all of her yarns, but this is the one that really started it all for me. This is the Seacliff fingering yarn in the 100% California Ramboilette wool, and it's so lofty, and it feels so comfortable, really breathable, and I love it. So I was wearing this anyway, and so it was kind of perfect podcasting outfit, done and done. And it can be dressed up, it can be dressed down. It's just one of my favorite things. So it's actually the sweater I'm wearing in my little profile picture on Instagram, so you may have already noticed it there, but I don't think I've shared a lot of details about it, so I was really happy to wear it today. And there's a lot of knitting to talk about, so I should probably get into it. I felt very seen/attacked by a recent Instagram reel about knitting podcasts, so please forgive me, but I am gonna take a sip. I will try not to slurp. I will post the link to the reel below. It is hilarious, and it is also references some of my acquisitions. It will absolutely, if you watch a lot of knitting podcasts, I think it's really gonna hit a nerve for you. So, finished objects. I have some really fun things. This is the first. And this is I'm gonna say this wrong, aren't I? No, Pappus, Pappus Pullover. This is by Midori Hiorse, and the Knit Café Midori is what she goes by on Ravelry. And I made this in Bien Aimee mohair, how should I talk about this? I may have to cut this. I may have to start over because I'm doing a really bad job introducing the idea behind this, which was the incredible Aurora yarn from the Wandering Flock. Incredible hand-dyed mohair, just so electric. I cannot show you the skein of it because I used every last drop. I started off, this is a really interesting pattern, and I feel like even though there are lots of videos for it, it is more of a recipe, for me at least, than a step-by-step pattern. And I actually made the most modifications on this outfit or this top than any other piece I've ever worked. So it's knit both in the round and side to side. And I know that sounds like it doesn't make sense, but I promise it does. So this is your first cast on, but what I actually did is made it so you cast on and then you do a provisional cast on and then knit basically all the way around so that you're creating the sleeve as one long piece, and then you seam that sleeve and then join. So this is all one round. I'm not describing this properly. Basically, there's no top shoulder seam. The seam is in the underarm going this direction. And that's where your provisional cast on comes back to you. But what was so cool for me about this piece was that it really turned on my own creativity in a way, and I'm really, really proud of it. I started off with just one strand of the mohair and then added in the Bien Aimee in the color Vespa right after I got like halfway through the circumference of the cuff, or it actually hits about here. And I'll throw it on and put some photos in for you. I guess they'll be on this side today, or maybe this side. Somewhere there'll be some photos of me wearing this. It is so much fun. I think it just felt like spring with every single stitch. I'm sorry I wasn't as articulate as I'd like to be about describing the process, but I also don't want to give away the pattern. And I think that for those who have knit it or are looking for a really light, boxy, delightful, and fast knit, it's really, again, there's, I believe, just one size, but you can make, it really is more of a recipe than anything else, because depending on your needle gauge, your needle size, and the yarn that you use, you can really make it what you need. And the number of stitches that you cast on defines not just the neck opening, but also how long these arms are. So you can really go for it. And I think it can be a really exciting journey, or at least it was for me. I did put in, again, it made me feel much more free in my abilities. So I did quite a bit of waist shaping, first of all, because I was nervous about running out of yarn entirely. And you'll see, I don't know if you can tell, but I actually bound off, and the last few rows are just in the Bien Aimee, because I did run out completely and used every last drop of the Wandering Flock mohair. And so I did some pretty dramatic waist shaping. This is not blocked, by the way. It was done and I wanted to wear it. So I just said, it's done. And I wove in the ends and I went for it. And I just love it. And the back, so the back is where you cast on, and it's obviously much tighter than where you bind off, which is here. And then you do connect in the round and then do your final bind off at the bottom. And you really can't tell as much when I'm holding it here, but I hope you'll be able to tell in the finished object photos that it's much thinner up top, and then it's thicker on the bottom. And I did that for the front, but I added in the second strand of mohair much earlier in the back. So you see in the front, it's pretty transparent all the way up to, again, almost the end of the sleeve here. But in the back, I added in the second strand much earlier, so it's a little bit thicker. And again, I think that really helps with the drape and the weight of it. So it comes up higher in the neckline, and then it also sits down lower because it's a bit heavier in the back. I love this. It was a huge surprise for me making it. I don't think I really knew how much I was going to enjoy it, and now I'm on the lookout. I want to make a cumulus blouse with mohair and from Petite Knit, and I'm really excited about doing that. I'm working on more pieces like this. My stitches are not perfect. I have never worked in such a loose gauge before, and so I do think a block will kind of help shimmy a few of these bad characters into a better spot, because there are a few places where one of the mohair strands is kind of sticking out a little bit more than the other. So that'll be something to hopefully work out in blocking, or also just as I wear it. So anyway, this was a total delight. I recommend this pattern times 100. I know that I would not say it is a beginner pattern, though. I would say that you want to be able to know how to use it for you. And I think that means that it's probably not, see how great it is? It's probably not ideal if this is your first or even second garment, because I think that you can really make the most of it as someone with a little bit more experience. So, but it's such a delight, and it was a great way to really feel spring knits going strong. So that was fabulous. And it was also one of those things that I thought about in my head and then was able to kind of execute from start to finish. So thank you also to everyone who recommended their favorite airy knits from episode 2, because I definitely looked into those, and there's so many great ones out there, and I'm convinced that I need more pieces like this because they're so much fun to wear. Next, I have my Velvet Mirror Cowl, which is in Qing fibers. This is a Andrea Mowry pattern that came out in February, early February, and my plan was to finish it off for the Rose City Yarn Crawl. I did not do that, and it's actually supposed to be, I think, 2.5 times the size, and then you're supposed to seam it together. But this thing is so thick. I really just think for my climate, it was not going to work out. So the super soft, fluffy goodness here is Qing Fibers Melted Baby Suri, which is an alpaca wool and silk blend. And it is so soft and so beautiful. I loved working with this fiber. It's quite firm. Here, I'm gonna do like a little slow pan of it. Oh, so great. This is also not blocked, so the edges are rolling, but when I block it, I'm gonna both block it out a bit wider. So what you were supposed to do is make this, again, about 2.5 times as big as this current section, and then seam the edges together with a twist. And I just thought, I'm not gonna wear that. It's just way beyond what my needs are. And it's quite thick because, again, that stranded color work means you're doubling up on everything. And with the Melted Baby Suri, it was just gonna be a thick fuzz fest, which I get, but for my climate, I just know I'll wear it a lot more as a single cowl. So again, I'll take some photos and enter them in here of me wearing it. I think it looks super cute as a single. So I wear it as a tube like this. And it's so fun. And I really love the way, thank you for everyone's encouragement for sticking it out through the yellow that I was so nervous about. I did get a little, what's it called? Micromanagey, perhaps, definitely, in my Spincycle, but it transitioned beautifully. It just kind of blended in right here. So the final colors really go almost exactly with the color of this whale colorway of the Qing fibers. So really beautiful. I think it worked out really well in the end, and I'm gonna be really glad I have it, and I think I'll just get so much more use out of it with this construction. It almost made me sad because I am quite a completist, and I really wanted to, finish it quote unquote right, but I know I'll get a lot of use out of it this way, and I think the giant cowl is just not something I need, and I was making this for me, so at the end of the day, I got to choose, and that's what I decided to do. So that's my first Andrea Mowry finished object. And my second is, talk about use. This is my DRK everyday sweater that is already one of my most worn items. Sorry, I was taking my own hair off of it. It is knit up this is from, as I mentioned, Andrea Mowry. I knitted up in a really stunning lamb's wool from Kate Davies, and this is which is a Scottish knitwear designer who also has her own yarn. I'm just gonna let's see if I can get all the way up close. And you can see the stitches just look so nice. I have to say, I'm really proud of them. It feels both handmade and also really, it's my most well finished in appearance, I would say, garment. Each of my stitches looks really even, really plump, but really discreet. And I think the British word is chuffed. I'm chuffed, man. I'm feeling great. It's incredibly beautiful and incredibly useful. And even though it's just one color, it might appear a bit plain, it's a delight, and it's a great layering piece. This is a DK weight yarn, but it's quite, I would call it quite thin for a DK, but it's also really breathable. And like I said, it plumped up after washing really, really well. The colorway is called Faded Overalls. It is really saturated. I was quite concerned actually about this yarn having some leakage or some bleeding, you know, from this deep dark color, which I don't know if this is naturally dyed with indigo plant fibers, but it feels that way and it looks a lot like that. So usually I do a lukewarm or tepid water for my blocking, and I did do a cold for this just in case, and a little bit came out, but not a ton. And so it was great. I also think that this pattern is such a workhorse, and it's called Everyday for a reason. I am also quite proud of my tubular bind off, which I think looks, again, this was my first one, and I think it looks really good on my sleeves, and I love wearing it, and I think it's one of those things that people are really, I don't know, I don't want to say impressed by, but it's a statement while not being a statement, if that makes sense. It's understated presence, but it has a presence, and I really love it. So I'm really happy with this, and I know I'm going to wear it a ton, and it does help me transition very seamlessly into my first FO. And there are a lot of, or not FO, sorry, whip, my first whip. And I have a lot of whips. And I have one whip that was, which we can discuss. But first, let's get to Metamorphic. This is basically, I don't want to say it's the same sweater because it's absolutely not the same sweater. Because this is also the by Andrea Mowry. It's using Spincycle Dyed in the wool, like so. This is the color Morning, I believe. Morning Ritual, or no, this is Meadow, sorry. This is Meadow. And this is Morning Ritual, or the end of Morning Ritual, because previous podcast viewers will remember, or could recall if they wanted to, that I created a giant Frankenball. It was like the size of a really big softball, and made of all my different Spincycle scraps, including quite a bit of this Morning Ritual from Ritual Dyes, some from the Meadow, some Close Call, some Castaway. There's quite a bit of Castaway. So I made this giant Frankenstein ball of it for my contrast colors. And then my main color is the Spincycle Metamorphic, which is their recycled yarn. And my marl is lot number 6. And I think it's called something just blue-gray, number 6. I think that's it. It doesn't say, but it's a marl and it's blue-gray, number 6. It has quite a bit of variation within it. It's really soft, much softer, I will say, than the dyed in the wool, which can feel fine, but it's not really about the texture of dyed in the wool, is it? Dyed in the wool is really doing something different, I think, than texture, except when it's in reverse stockinette. So I think last time I was about to split for sleeves, or maybe I had just done the collar, but I'm done with the body and I love it. The 2x2 collar and hem will be very familiar based on what you just saw. And I have made a few changes though, which I felt confident, or modifications, which I felt really confident to make on this, having just completed the DRK every day. So what I was able to do was add a little bit more waist shaping, because I found that what I really loved was how this 2x2 rib creates such a nice finish at the bottom on my DRK every day. And so, but I didn't want it to billow over at all, which I find that DRK does a little bit because there's zero waist shaping. So then when you decrease your needle size and add in that ribbing, when it comes in, it creates a little bit of a, not a pop, but there's a definite bend. So I wanted to decrease that a bit. And so I added in a little bit of waist shaping. I just did some decreases along the sides and the back on either side of these faux seams. And I think it worked out really well. I've tried it on and I'm really happy with it. And, oh shoot, there's a little tugged, oh good, popped that back in. Little tug stitch. The reverse stockinette can, I feel like, I understand why some people think it looks a bit unfinished, but I think that these seams really pull it out. And I know that blocking is also going to help this garment immensely, because it does look a little rough and ready. But I'm going to show you up close what this variation looks like. Isn't that so fun? I do really dig it. And I'm really happy with the way my Spincycle Frankenball turned out, especially now that it's kind of done. I got to the core was that morning ritual, so it's just, now I have to decide what to do for sleeves. I think that what I'm gonna do is probably, here, I did actually, I also have this big cop out of green. So what I think I'm gonna do is cast on the sleeves in these really bright greens, one on each side. And while I'm not going to knit them two at a time, I'm gonna create a fade on each, because I think that the yarn that I have left that I wanna use is just too different. So I'll have to just kind of line out and create two different fades. It'll take some time, but I genuinely enjoy it. I really do. And there's one more project that is gonna be kind of doing something similar a little later. Oh my gosh, I have so much to talk about. I'm so sorry, but I think, again, one of the tropes from, I think this Instagram reel is really hitting home right now, because I'm going to take a sip and I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I thought I was only going to talk for 30 minutes, but here I am, and it's been an hour and a half. So that's going to be me. Okay, next. This is a brand new whip I haven't discussed. I hadn't even thought anything like this project would be in my future, on my calendar of what I wanted to make. And then I saw a test call and I thought, oh wow, that's so pretty. I don't have anything like that. And I just signed up for it. I really assumed I was not going to get it. I did. And then I had to rework a lot of my other plans. So I will admit right now that I have frogged the pressed flower shawl that I showed the little snippet of last time. I wasn't loving the fabric, and I think that's because I was using a DK with a mohair, which on too small of needles, and it was just too tight, and it wasn't tight. It was like the fabric was, the knitting was fine. The experience of knitting was quite joyful, but the fabric it was creating was too stiff. I really should have done a fingering and a mohair, or just done the DK, but I felt like the colors that I had without the mohairs were just too muted. because I tried that for a little bit in pattern. And so I do want to make the work. I do want to use the yarn, but I don't think they're the right fit. So I'm taking that off I frogged it. It's off my whips counter. It's no longer with us. I will find a better fit for the yarn and for the pattern. And I just have to kind of admit to myself that not everything is going to work out. And that's part of this process. And it's part of the joy is figuring out what will. And speaking of things that work out, this is the My Time sweater by LilyKate Designs, who is a brilliant, super young designer. I'm so impressed with her work. And check this out. I mean, when I say I don't have anything like this, I don't think anyone has anything like this. Let me see if you can check out this amazing sleeve. Oh my goodness. Isn't it stunning? Okay, can you see? So those gaps you see, let me try to show it off a little bit more, are drop stitches in this giant balloon sleeve, which I'm quite proud of, to be honest. It's worked flat on the shoulders and joined in the round. Has a really lovely V. Again, this will block better, and I'm quite proud of the V. Fits me super, super well. The shoulders fit incredibly well. I did get a longer sleeve than called for in pattern, even though I am getting row gauge, but I think that might be because the yarn itself is stretchier than the yarn called for, and I still think it's gonna look really beautiful and dramatic, and I'm fine with it. And I did check in with the designer and she's okay with it too. So I think everybody's okay with how it turned out. And speaking of the yarn, this is definitely one of my favorite acquisitions of my time as a knitter. I purchased other yarn. It came. I was ready to cast on with the yarn that I had, and it was fine. I think it was going to be fine. And then I went to Knit House in Tiburon, California, which is a delightful place, and I found this amazing, amazing stuff. This is 70% llama, 30% silk. Colorway is Arctic, and it is from Juniper Moon Farms. It's called Stargazer. It is the softest, most drapey, dooloop. Obviously that's why my sleeves are a little more balloony than most. It's stunning. And this is baby llama and silk. And they also carry, here it is, lichen and lace. This is marsh mohair. It's a standard blend, 72% mohair, 28% silk. This is the color Blue Lagoon. And it's just a match made in heaven. I'm so, so happy with this combination. I'm gonna get up close and personal with it for you. And I just love it. I think that it worked out really, really beautifully. And I think it's a glamour knit. It's a glamorous fabric. It's a glamorous garment. There's a really great video on LilyKate's Instagram that I will link to below as well, that shows the power of blocking and what a huge difference it makes in patterns like this, where you have a double knit collar, for example, or these sleeves. Basically just how the stitch definition in the garment itself relaxes into place with the solid blocking. I will not be doing any stretching or morphing or direct shaping, but just letting the fibers relax and then grab onto each other with some structure really will shape this in a different way. So one sleeve down, one to go, and I'm done. I am on time, which feels great, and really, really delighted with this surprise test knit and surprise yarn find, and just, it's a pleasure. You know, this is such a pleasurable craft, and I will say too that this knits up very quickly. I think this is going to be, I mean, I don't know what other folks like, but I think of it as an instant classic. This piece is a statement piece that is quite easy to execute while looking incredibly refined. And I can't wait to wear it to events and out and about on date nights, etc. So really, really thrilled with this. And thank you to LilyKate for accepting me into the test. Also, you know, a fellow Lily supporting Lilies. She's just fabulous, and the testing community around this piece has also been really wonderful. So I'm very, very grateful to everyone for the support and the help, and seeing everyone's objects come together has been really wonderful. And if you haven't done a test knit before, and you're curious about them, I do encourage you to, if you don't already, it's a great way to learn new techniques and to really be see a different side, I guess, of the knitting community. I just started this year, so this is only my second test, but in each of my test knit experiences, I've had a really special time. It's been a really beautiful way to connect with people and to support their creativity. And it really is unique, I think, in the making community to have this volunteership and this sense of collaboration and community and support really all rolled into one. So if that's something you're interested in doing, you can also follow hashtags for test knits on Instagram, and then Ravelry does have some groups. I am not an active really Ravelry user except on my test knits because I do want to support the designers and show what finished objects look like in that context. But I do really recommend folks take a look at Instagram because that's where I found all the calls for test knits that I had been a part of. So pro tip. But it's just lovely, really, really fun. And it is surprising, right? Part of the joy of doing a test knit, I think, is the sense of discovery. And if that's one of the things that you love in your making is that sense of discovery and that sense of creative spark, I think it's really fun to be around that and to feel supported by that. So that is whip number 2. And then whip number 3 is a really fun pairing. So you may recall from my acquisitions of episode 2, in that Wandering Flock delivery, I received some of the fingering, merino fingering colorway. This is Aurora as well, all caked up. So this is the same colorway as the mohair, as you can see. It's really delightful. Obviously comes out in a different application when you have different materials, but I think that's quite lovely. And what I wanted to do was create a cami or tank top to go underneath that beautiful lacy pullover. So I thank you again for all your recommendations. It seems like the cami makers of the moment seem to be my favorite knitwear, and also Jessie May designs. And while scoping out the Jessie May designs crop and tank top hashtags, I discovered that someone had turned her framework bralette into a tank. And I'll try to insert a photo of it somewhere. It is really, really fun. It also has some faux seams here, And then on this, it's very symmetrical. So the front and the back are the same. I just took it off the needles and put it onto this white barber cord just to give it a little bit more ease in displaying for you guys. This is the most fun color too. It is not coming out. It is much brighter, I think, than it shows on the screen. And I'm just checking my watch to kind of double check there. But yeah, no, it is so much brighter than what you're seeing. And it has a little bit more green than what you're seeing as well. It's much cooler, not quite as warm. I love it. It's so squishy. I'm holding the fingering double because this is a DK weight pattern, but it's not gonna be too hot. I mean, it feels really nice and not super warm at all. So I'm really happy with it. It's meant to be worn with negative ease, which is why it looks quite small. And my plan for this, you knit it inside out. So it's actually quite similar to the DRK Metamorphic, or the Andrea Mowry Metamorphic, that is. So you knit it inside out. So these panels are actually done in purl stitches on the opposite side. And I think it's going to be just the ideal piece underneath the, and this fingering weight yarn is so flexible. I really feel like you can do anything with it. So my idea is to stay in this bright yellow until like 2 more rows from here, where I'll be right under my bust line. And then for the bralette part of it, I will change to this yarn. And so these tones are actually, I don't know if this is going to come out, but the yellow from here is the same as the yellow in that cake. Isn't that so cool? Here, maybe if I'm farther away. Yeah, that's a much better tone, colored tone. And it's the same as these. Oh, yes, it is. So that's going to be quite fun. And that will go all the way up and do the straps in that. And it will be perfect to wear underneath my, oh, I just love this. Isn't it so great? I love it so much. Delightful. I think so. I probably should have worn this today, but I'll wear it next time. Just love it. Sorry. I'll stop mooning over myself, I promise. No, I won't. That's why we do these podcasts. We want to share with other people, and we're just so excited about what we have. That's what I'm convinced this is all about. And so my last whip is, because I did frog that shawl. Sorry. My last whip is my great gingham raglan. So this is a design that I have had planned to cast on since it was released. Honestly, since the test call, which I think the call went out while I was doing the test for Teti, and like it was my first time ever doing a test, and I was never gonna sign up for 2. And so I did the hat when that came out. And this was my swatch, really, for the sweater. And what I decided was that while I really loved using the Castle, which is the Spincycle variegated yarn here, I decided it was really too bright and too much of a statement for an everyday-ish sweater. And so that was one of the learnings. The other learning I had was that my sport weight yarn is thinner than her sport weight yarn. And so I have some gauge, I won't say issues, I have some gauge modifications that I am doing. So I cast this on. It is a bottom-up sweater. You do the arms first. I just have one little cuff. I just cast it on last night, but it is just the sweetest. And instead of the castle, you would say, oh, well, that is the castle, Lily. No, it's not. It is a close sister of the castle called Close Call, which is a very cool pink and green blend from Spincycle. And my main color is this incredibly beautiful chicory sport weight yarn from Camellia Fiber Company. And look at the twist on that. Isn't that stunning? It's really special. And I am really committed to it. So, oh, it's a much deeper blue than what you're seeing there. This looks a little bit gray and blown out. You know what? Time out, team. I wonder, I closed this window because I thought it would, oh, this blind, but maybe, does that help with our light? Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry now to all my other pieces. I think that's much better. Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm going to show then these. And there you go. There you can really see a nice range, I think, of what the colorways will look like. Knit up in pattern. And this is something I didn't really know was a thing, but I'm really excited now that I do, which is the birthday sweater. My birthday is May 5th. I'm a Cinco de Mayo baby. And what I love about this, and maybe this is a little too silly, but these squares are 5 by 5. So I will just be doing 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 from now until May 5th. So I'm really hoping I can finish this off in the next month and have a really fun and wearable knit. As I said, this sport weight is such a great fit for my climate and temperature, and I wear my shifty, which is an entirely Spincycle knit. I just wear it all the time, and I think it's because it's such a good weight and temperature. It modulates temperature really well for me, so I'm excited to knit something in this and have it be similar. So let's talk gauge. I am usually a super loose knitter, and I am used to going down in, is that right? Now I'm saying it on camera, I'm gonna get nervous. But yes, going down in needle size so that I can get gauge. And that is my usual MO. Because my sport weight is my main color sport weight is genuinely just a thinner yarn than the yarn called for in pattern. I am now getting more stitches per square inch than the pattern calls for. Not much more, because again, my knitting is quite loose, but more. So I'm doing a couple things. One, my measurements are in between sizes, in between the medium and the small size. And this is a quite size inclusive pattern. I believe there are 9+ sizes. There might even be 10 in the pattern. And so, oh, maybe I'll edit to put up a snapshot, but just in case you don't know, the pattern looks like this. It goes all the way, y'all, it goes all the way up to 5X. Goes from extra small to 5X, which I think is a really pretty, I hope now, standard for size inclusivity. And I'm really excited about the piece, but as I was saying, I'm in between the small and the medium, I think, in terms of the dimensions I would like the finished garment to be. So I'm knitting the medium size, and I'm not changing needles. I'm using the called for needles. So I know this is not recommended, right? Like, I should probably go back and redo all the math in order to make my gauge correct. But based on the fit of having done the test of my hat and knowing what I know about my own knitting size and gauge, I think it's gonna work. So I'm not unconfident. I still think this is gonna be the right size, and I'm also gonna block the sleeves before I start the body just to double, triple check, because if the sleeves are a little bit big, that's fine. I do know that my ribbing is always very, very loose, and so I did go down 2 needle sizes in my ribbing, which is what I always do. I almost always actually knit my sleeve ribbings in like size 2 needles. The smallest size I can get away with. And actually that is the truth for my test knit as well. Well, I just went down 1 needle size on the hem, but for the sleeves, because these are supposed to be quite big balloon sleeves, and I wanted that dramatic finish, I went quite small on my needle size here as well. And that's just what I needed to achieve the look in the pattern, because I know that my ribbing can be quite loose. And also I think that I do have like kind of bony wrists for the rest of my body's scale and size. And so getting that look of having something really tight around my wrist in order to achieve that, I think I just have to go down quite a bit in needle sizes. So that is what I'm working on. And I thought it might also be kind of fun. A lot of folks were so excited about the Heidi West bags, which again are my platonic ideal knitting project bag. This is so fabulous, especially if for a big sweater project like this, where you know you're going to go through multiple skeins of yarn fairly quickly. So I thought I might show you guys how I set up this bag. I'll take some of the yarn out just so it's in my actual, I'll pop it up. Don't be weird. There we go. Just so you can see inside really well, and how I kind of set up the pockets and so on. So this has all those wonderful interior pockets, and I have my pens for marking up my pattern. And yes, I did run out of staples, and so I'm using a light bulb stitch marker instead of a staple, and it works really well. So a little pro tip. I have my body needles all ready to go. These are the Chow Goos. I use 4-inch needles. I think I think the exception to the rule where it fits my hands better to use the shorter needles than the longer ones for whatever reason. I have my barber cords all ready to go. I have my sleeve, teeny tiny cuff needles, and then my, oh no, this actually is a sleeve needle. And then this is what I'll knit the rest of the sleeve on. Again, these are Chow Goos. These are the minis, but not the uber mini, which is this. These are the large size, quote unquote, large size minis. And then this is the itty bitty mini. Aren't those so cute? They work really well for me, especially for casting on something that I want to have such a small circumference. They worked great in that application. I have my tape measure in here and my stitch markers, and I'm all set. So this makes, for me at least, what would be a super unwieldy project really able to be on the go and something that I can bring in the car, take up and down stairs, and it's really handy. So that's been great. And then last time I spoke about wanting to use that yarn. So this was not my last episode, but in the very special episode about the Rose City Yarn Crawl, I spoke at length about using yarn that I acquired to make a Birkin sweater, using leftover Seacliff fingering, which is what this sweater is made out of, from a large project that was yet unfinished, and I had some folks reach out and ask about what that was. So I'll tell you, this is like real talk. I guess this is the 3rd episode, so this is like, we've really bonded now, guys. Like, I'm being very real with you. I'm just gonna be myself and let you know that I kind of abandoned a really amazing project. And I'm not proud of it, and I might actually need some support on this. So I fell in love with the Stria cardigan last fall as I was really hitting my stride in my knitting renaissance. And here's a picture of it. It's meant to be knit up in a base color and then 4 alternating colors, which are stripes. It's another Andrea Mowry pattern. It is what it is. I'll put a better photo than just this very old now printout. It's really beautiful, and it uses half fisherman's rib, which I made my Cocoa Knit Sarah cardigan out of, which is detailed in my very first episode. If you haven't watched that one, I would go back and take a look. It's a great pattern. I'm such a booster for Cocoa Knits cardigans. Like, if you think you don't like knitting cardigans, you should just look at Julie Weisberger's cardigans. I mean, they're really amazing. And they're all use this really cool Cocoa Knits method, which is great if you like checking things off and feeling like you're organized and on top of increases and working flat and all sorts of stuff. And if you don't like seaming, this girl. In any case, so I had finished that Sarah cardigan. I was really feeling myself. I was really feeling ambitious. This pattern came out. I said, yes, I'm doing it. I'm stoked. I got the pattern. I knew what yarn I wanted to use because Sea Change Fibers had just launched their French Dispatch inspired yarn collection. And I said, I'm not just going to use 4 colors. I am going to use almost all the colors. I think this is now all the colors in the French Dispatch colorway. And I do love the Sea Change Fibers white is just so perfect. It's such a great white. It's bright, but still warm. I mean, it's amazing. So anyway, I cast it on. I was doing great. And then I completely effed up the Raglan, which in half fisherman's rib is like a real bother. It's a real bother. And I messed it up and didn't know that I messed it up. And then I went back and I fixed it. And then after I fixed it, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's still not perfect. Like, you can see, for some reason, there's certain rows where I make the Raglan increase, I'm getting the opposite color on top, which shouldn't happen. Like, it doesn't happen here, and then it does happen there where I fixed it. And then I went back and tried to fix it again, and I effed it up again. And it's too pretty for me to rip out. I don't want to frog it. I want to make it. I want to do a good job. And I'm a little at a loss. It's also knit on 2mm needles. So it's just a lot of stitches. And I'm still a little ways away from splitting for sleeves. And I think, I don't know, has this happened to anyone? I will say, I love my color repeats that I'm doing. So instead of doing larger blocks of white, which again, like, I had to make it harder. Why? I didn't have to do any of that. I was like, oh no, I'm just gonna have it be like a full on rainbow. So I fade into gray like that, to gray, from this really, really light pink all the way down to gray. And then I'm gonna go back out to the light pink again, and then down to gray. And I'm really, really happy with that. I mean, I'm happy with a lot of it, but it's not totally correct. And here, can I see that? Isn't that nice? I mean, I think that is looking quite nice. Oh dear, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I think I just have to jump back into it. And so these are the gorgeous colors that I'm very excited to use the leftovers of in my Birkin, but I should really finish this first. And here you can see that this was my swatch for it. I mean, fab, right? Like, so fab. And really summery. Maybe that's why I couldn't get into it. Maybe this is gonna be my summer knit. But this isn't washed and blocked, and it just looks so, it's such a great fabric. Oh, I love Sea Change. They do such an amazing job. And the yarn is so nice. Anywho, that is why I bought the French Dispatch colorways for the Stria cardigan that I will finish. And it really is my only UFO, unfinished object. When I found that out, I was so delighted. When I was watching a knitting podcast, and someone called something a UFO, I was just tickled. It was so lovely. And those are my whips. That's where we are. Acquisitions. I've had a few. I haven't had a ton. I actually have something that's supposed to be arriving today, which I'm really, really excited about, but hasn't shown up yet. So that maybe I'll do a little like, peekaboo, it's me again in a few minutes with that. But I will talk about my Newton order and then something really special I found at my local yarn store. So for those of you who aren't super online or watching a lot of podcasts, Newton is an unspun yarn. It's quite like Flotolopi, which is a yarn from, from Iceland. So it's technically a roving, but it's a pencil roving is what it's called, because I think it's thinner than the diameter of a pencil, but I guess you could call it that. Isn't that light fluff? And I have been a patron of theirs for about 6 months now on Patreon, and they have really wonderful content. Newton is spun by Owner Our, and I always say that wrong, and I apologize profusely. They will be linked below, and the creators seem like a delight. They produce some really wonderful content as well as very beautiful yarn. And I made one of my favorite projects ever, the Purpurea sweater, out of this yarn, and I love it and I love wearing it, and it's very, very special experience to knit with it because it's so distinctive, and also it creates such a unique and fabulous fabric. So their most recent shop update included a blue. So I did get a really sweet message on Instagram from a viewer who said, there's a blue, which one I'm sure that's the one you're getting. And they were correct. They were right and correct. So I got I think 4 plates of this white, which is called Snow, which I believe they will be having consistently. Most of their shop updates are done all at once. They'll have 4 or 5 colors, and then they'll go dark and they'll be working on their next quote unquote collection, much like a lot of other specialty hand dyers do. And so each yarn, in addition to being a different colorway, usually has a different composition as well. So I will also credit, when I say they have great content, they are really educational. So I've learned the most about fiber and different kinds of sheep breeds and different properties of the material from watching their YouTube videos, which are available to patrons. And I really do find it educational and enlightening, and they explain things really well. I highly recommend it. It's been really helpful for me to feel like in a short amount of time, I've learned quite a bit about how fiber is made and what goes into that process, and the different types of resources that it takes. So, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent from me saying that each of the colors is distinctive and each of the compositions of the colors that they make. So then the properties of the yarn itself shifts and changes. Snow, for example, is quite steady. I find this much steadier as a yarn with much longer fibers. It's easy to pull off of these cakes in a way that's really, yeah, just easier to manipulate. Here's that strand. There we go. And it feels much more like just a lightweight yarn that you could purchase as a spun yarn. And it's behaving that way. As you can kind of see it move around, it's quite easy to manipulate. And I will still probably roll this into handmade balls of yarn, which is what I did with the other project I used Nutidin in. But I felt like I could be a little more, not aggressive, but assertive, I would say, with this color. Versus Stila, which apparently was a bit of a harsh one in the machine, and you can see it's behaving much more kind of, it has a different drape, it's not standing up as much, it's really taking a very delicate hand, and I would definitely hold this double or with a mohair. So as I was unpacking these, and they are packed in these really beautiful brown bags with handwritten labels, and it's a whole aesthetic. What can I say? Here, let me try to get up close and see if you can see. Oh no, that's not right. That's a little better. This is a deep blue, but it's just not coming out. It's looking much more brown. There are some browns in it, but they're quite mute. The browns are muted and the blues are bright in this bad boy. So this is, as I mentioned, a much more delicate, more easily drafted, which is when it falls apart, a more easily drafted yarn versus the Snow. And as they came in, I thought to myself, what if I put them together? So I then spent way too long on Instagram, which I'm sure no one else has ever done. But I was looking for someone who had fully marled their Nutidin. And if you have done this or have an idea of what this might be like, I would love your input or advice, because I feel like it would really be an interesting pairing of the more hardy and steady state fiber composition of the Snow and then the super delicate Stila together could create like a really nice fabric. So obviously I'll swatch it up, but I'm kind of curious about that. And isn't that fun? I just rolled up a little ball just to see what that might be like. Isn't that lovely? It's so fun. You can see it. And look, actually, this is a neat way of seeing the different textures of these two yarns, because the fiber quality and the fiber's reaction to the dyes, which are obviously different, are quite different. So you can see them really behave differently, I think. Isn't that neat? So along with these two colors, I also got a Lucky Charms package, which now has a new name. And I think it's the way you say like troll in Swedish, which I think is really sweet. And in my Lucky Charms, I got a little bit of this very beautiful pale green, which would be great for color work with this. The dark green, which is a really interesting and really beautiful texture. Is this gonna just look black? No, there you go. Oh, that actually is coming out beautifully. Yes, so cool. There we go. There, that's it. So nice. And then this cranberry, which I just feel like I need more of in my life. Isn't that nice? I think I could wear this. I like it a lot. And I love getting those little surprises. So that was a really fun one. And I think those are just available to Patreon members, but super, super fun and definitely worth it because I quite like that one there. And then the other acquisition is a little exciting. My local yarn store has started stocking Bien Aimee, which I think is very cool. And they had a little event. They're usually closed Monday through Friday, but they were open on a Friday, especially when they got their new shipment in. And the shop is called A Verb for Keeping Warm. In addition to stocking some really beautiful yarns from around the world, they also they're natural dyers, and they have a really beautiful collection of yarns, naturally dyed yarns, and of all natural fibers. And also they produced a beautiful book about dyeing with natural fibers and using natural plants for at-home plant dyeing. And I'm just a big proponent of them and their space. And they worked to put together some kits, and I was really, really drawn to one of them to make a shawl. And I don't have any shawls. Believe it or not, it's true. So the kit itself, because this is, again, like, I cannot leave well enough alone, right? So you get there's all of these really beautiful displays, and this is the satellite shawl, which is a really beautiful brioche and garter shawl that I have been saving in my library for like however long. It's been out, like 4 years or something like that. And so this is the kit that they had all prepared for A Verb for Keeping Warm. And they picked out this beautiful color, and I see it, and do I say, oh yeah, that's really good looking, I love it, I'll get it? No, because that would be easy. Again, what are we talking about? Who am I? No, I go, well, I love that, but that bright red is just not something I will wear very often. Probably true. What if I find a different Suri alpaca silk blend and put it in there instead? So I started looking for more Bien Aimee, which at this point, I mean, I don't think I was late to the event or the weekend or whatever, but like basically it was all gone. Like this was, there were just a few kits left and then a few skeins of random things. So I was looking for, this is the Eric Northman that I got on the Rose City Yarn Crawl. I thought this would be very cool to do as the other Suri alpaca in the kit. But did they have this? No, of course not. But they did have their house dyed Suri. Now, this is soft current. This is so beautiful. Probably not something I would have picked out on its own just because I would not have known what to do with it. But look at this. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is just stunning. With this super dark navy, and then of course my favorite color, this teal, of course is my favorite color. Look at what I'm wearing. But check that out. Oh, can you see it okay? I think so. Yeah. There we go. Oh, I just love it. So, Soft Current is the name of the yarn. The colorway is Topaz. And the dyes that they use are logwood, madder, fustic, kutch. And it is 74% baby Suri alpaca and 26% silk. So, you know what? This is actually really beautiful. I might just read you a little bit. Sorry, this is not like sponsored by A Verb for Keeping Warm, but they are such a unique company and I just think it's really special. So this is their little blurb. Spinning, dyeing, knitting, felting, weaving, and sewing are all verbs used to describe how communities have created cloth, garments, and other fiber-based goods. Such acts embody love and creativity. Such objects provide protection from the elements and keep us warm. Our company honors these traditions and specializes in high-quality, hand-dyed fiber, yarn, and fabric. Made in our Oakland studio, our materials are unique and one of a kind. Isn't that great? So yeah, I thought this was a really fun kit, and I'm super excited to make a shawl. I'm not committing to being a shawl person, but I'm very excited to make it. This, though, will be after a fun event that I will talk about in my next section. I have another acquisition, which is not yarn, but which has become a big part of my yarny life. And that is an electric gleaner. So I have this very beautiful instrument from Pearl Soho, which is a hand gleaner. And I have used it, I have loved it. It is definitely a process. It is like meditative. You just block out 20 minutes, take a garment, and go through it. It's very lovely. But if you have very limited time in your day and you work and have 2 small children, might I recommend from ye olde Amazon Shopee, the #1 rated electronic gleaner. And I have said this before and I'll say it again. I don't mind pilling, but I think that's because I own this. So if you haven't seen one of these before, they have a very faint vacuum in them. So it's not gonna like suction like something from, across the room or even like in a deep carpet, but it's enough to slightly lift a pilling fiber off of a sweater. And then there is kind of like a little cheese grater inside, which cuts it off. So it does make a little noise, but I will just show you. Let me see if I have any. Okay, here is an actively pilling section of this sweater. And I will get up and just perform this for you. There you go. All done. Oh, there's a little more over there. Ta-da! So I love this thing. I'll show you what. Then you just open it up and you take out your little bit of fuzz. You say, bye fuzz, see you later. And there you go. So this thing has been amazing. I've had it for like 2 weeks and I think I've used it on almost all my sweaters so far. It makes a huge difference. I'm really happy with it. And while the meditative, beautiful qualities of the other gleaner are quite nice, I will probably most often be using this tiny hand vacuum for my sweaters. And I do recommend it wholeheartedly. So that's my other acquisition I wanted to discuss. And we have one more kind of acquisition-y thing, which is the giveaway. And I'm really happy to be able to share this Heidi West Designs bag. This giveaway is in honor of reaching 1,000 subscribers. And I believe today we're at like 1,600 or something. So, very exciting stuff for little old me. And I say that sarcastically, but I shouldn't. This is actually very exciting for me. I really like doing this more than I thought I would, and it's become a really fun part of my life. So I really am appreciative, and I want to show that appreciation as best I can. So the things that are in this wonderful small project bag are one skein of the Wandering Fox Aurora in fingering weight. And this is one of the skeins that I had caked up for my tank. This is another This is Neon Sherbet. Again, this is the color that you saw the tank worked up in. It is a very bright, bright greenish yellow. It is neon. So don't get it twisted. This is the corresponding hand dyed, excuse me, sorry, the skein is a little funky there. There we go. Hand dyed mohair, and this is 80% mohair. So it's really fluffy. It has a really beautiful halo, and it's 80% mohair, 20% silk. And then I just thought this was such a fun addition. So this is the Qing Fibers Melted Baby Suri in the color Duck Egg. And I just thought that the 4 of these together looked so sweet. I couldn't not add it to the bouquet. So this was unplanned, but like, I mean, come on. It's just the cutest. And it's so spring-like because the prompt for the giveaway is going to be, what is your bud? So as I mentioned, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and one of the things we ask them instead of how was your day at preschool or how was your day or how are you feeling is we do rose, thorn, and bud. So what was a rose from your day, something that was really beautiful or special? What was a thorn, something that didn't really go your way, or maybe you actually got hurt, which happens a lot with my very active kids. So like, oh, well, I dropped a truck on my foot. It's definitely a thorn that we've heard. And then the last one is your bud. So what is the thing that you are looking forward to? So if you would please, to enter the giveaway, just comment below with what your bud is, the thing that you're looking forward to this spring. And then I will use a random generator to pick a winner, and I'll send you off this little spring bouquet, which I think is quite delightful, and I hope you do too. And that brings me to some of my buds and things that I am working on and looking forward to. One thing I'm really looking forward to, which you'll know if you follow me on Instagram, is the Knit Collage Knit Along. I really credit Knit Collage with introducing me to the larger knitting community. I did their fall knit along and I had so much fun. I had an incredible accountability group. They started just chatting with me about yarn, and it was so wonderful, and I felt so seen and like I had knitting friends for the first time. And then they started telling me about podcasts to watch on YouTube, and it was just this massive, incredible experience. So I am very excited about the Knit Collage Knit Along. I will be making their brioche kind of vest. It's a cardigan vest, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And I believe the teacher is Jackie from the Caddy Jacks Knitting podcast, if you watch that at all. And I love what the knit along is about in the context of Knit Collage. It is not about comparison. It is not a race. It's just like a giant applause section. And for me, knitting is such a positive influence in the world. Everything that I have engaged with has been so uplifting, and I really credit, again, Knit Collage and their knit along for helping me interact with that and to see that and to feel seen. So I'm really excited about it. I have done brioche, but I really want to be good at it, and I don't think I'm any good at it right now. So I'm really hoping this project helps me to learn a new skill and feel really comfortable and confident in it, because I want to do that shawl kit that I just mentioned and feel like I can create something really beautiful with brioche stitches after having completed a more simple version of the pattern, of the stitch pattern, that is. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to. Another thing I'm really looking forward to is starting a new job professionally, which is very exciting. This is just kind of general life update, but it might impact some of the things that I do here as well. As many of you know, I worked for a long time at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art as a curator in the painting and sculpture department. I worked on our strategic planning and also on individual exhibitions and managed very large projects for the museum. I left the museum last February, so February of 2021, and started working as a consultant for private collectors, so folks who owned lots of art and art in different places and who needed help in organizing and researching their works, and in some cases advising on purchases and future acquisitions. One of the things that I thought of was I was wondering about the commute, and I thought, oh, I'll just knit on my commute. So I actually think that I was a little worried about the sleeves of my Great Gingham Raglan, but now I'm like, oh yeah, that's like a sock knitting. I can just throw that into a small project bag with 2 skeins and I'm good to go. So, or 2 small cakes of yarn. So I think that that'll be a nice way to keep the commute more reasonable and feel hopefully a little bit more relaxed during commuting hours. And what else? I'm looking forward to summer. I definitely am a solar powered person. I love the sun and love being outdoors. So I'm really looking forward to spending more time with my family outside and running around and going to the beach and bringing my knits wherever I go. So thank you for sticking with me. I know this has been a really long one. I appreciate you. I'm so glad we're creating this community together, and I just encourage you to keep being yourself and bringing yourself and your true self with you wherever you go. Thanks so much for being here, and happy knitting. Bye. Well, hello. It's future Lily with actually much better lighting. I wish I had waited a half an hour to start filming this podcast. But nap time waits for no man. I am inserting a moment to talk about an acquisition that I'm very excited about, and also to recognize my most knitting podcast moment ever. The moment where I talk about a new acquisition that is the exact same color as the object or garment that I'm currently wearing. I apologize to no one. I can't believe it only took me 3 episodes to get this far. But here we are, my friends. This is happening. It's a green teal world and we're just living in it. This is the Rockies DK 100% Merino from Explorer Knits and Fibers, her spring tonal glacial melt, which I am quite excited about. Look at this beautiful drape. I shall be knitting, my plan is to knit my very first petite knit pattern, one of her mohairy vibed sweaters. This is quite a thin DK in my personal opinion, so I will be holding this with the same color, glacial melt, in her Suri, which is 26% silk and 74% baby Suri alpaca, again in glacial melt. And that is my plan for that. And just acknowledging the moment that I'm having where I'm really feeling my knitting podcast self with my acquisition and my insistence that this is somehow different or distinctive than all the other teal yarn that you have seen me hold today. Including, for example, this, which you've already seen as well. What am I doing? Oh, I love life. This is wild. It's a journey. Thanks for being on it with me. Cheers.